everyone. Today I have with me author Steve Altier, and I have his book. Let me see if I can get it nice and clear. Lizardville, the Ghost Story. And you wrote this book, what year exactly?
It came out last year in 2016.
Well, hi, Steve, anyway. So I loved your book, and I'm so happy you are here to talk to me about it.
Well, thank you, and I greatly appreciate the invitation, Michelle.
I love YA books, okay? I am an adult who loves, I have 6 children. I homeschooled them. I got involved in YA, in teaching them, and I love this book so much. And we have a lot in common because I am calling you from Pennsylvania. I am born and raised in Pennsylvania, and I know that you were born in Pennsylvania, but you didn't stay here very long.
I was born there. I left when I was 18 after high school.
Oh, okay. So you were here. You can say you're from Pennsylvania then.
Oh, absolutely. I know instead of it being creek, I know they call it crick.
Crick. You know what? I did and I didn't. It's weird. That's one of those words that I was born. Okay, I'm in Allentown, which is so for your reference, outside of Allentown. But I think I said both growing up. I don't know that I stuck to one or the other, but there are a lot of. I mean, I've just been in Texas because my older children live down there, and everybody I come in contact with, like, you're from the north. You're from the north. So I don't think I sound any different, but obviously I do.
Well, when you're from Pennsylvania, you kind of know that.
Yeah. So where did you grow up? It was central Pennsylvania, but where?
I grew up in a small town called Mill Hall, and we lived on Lizardville Road.
Interesting.
It's about 30 minutes from Williamsport, Pennsylvania.
I know
Lock Haven area.
Yes. Yeah, my mom was born in Williamsport, so I'm very familiar with that. So, okay, so now I can, because when I read that, I'm like, I like to know, there's a lot of middle. There's a lot of middle of Pennsylvania.
Yes, and I can say it's in the mountains, but everybody's in the mountains up there.
That's right. That's another thing. You can say I'm in the mountains, but, here I'm in the valley. I'm in Lehigh Valley, so I'm like in the people say valley and the mountains, so I'm in the valley. I'm surrounded by mountains.
Very nice.
So anyway, what I loved about this book is that it's you writing and you're telling a story for everybody out there. You're telling a story to your sons. The person that's writing it is telling a story, and the story is so amazing, and I love it. And then I saw today when I was looking up what your background and everything, I see there is another one coming out this year.
I hope to have it out this year. Yes.
I was so happy to read that because I was like, this is a series kind of book for me.
Well, good.
And I will read the next one, but I love the characters in it, and I love and I was trying to think of the name, and maybe you can think of the name for me, of the movie that my sons used to watch, and it was about a group of boys, and I was going to ask my one son, and now I forgot, but the movie was really popular back in the 90s, and it was about a group of boys growing up and kind of camping and fishing and, doing all the things that the boys, and it reminded me of it, and it was very popular back then, but I can't think of it. It's,
Well, it's been compared to, the book has been compared to Stand By Me, which was a book by Stephen King, which was, he called The Body.
Yes.
And it was also, people have said, referenced Goosebumps and The Goonies.
Right. So what I liked about it, I mean, the concept of the book and the things that you get into, I was like, it really interests me because it introduces kids to, it's a ghost story, of course, but it goes into other things where they're talking about, life and death, and they lose one of their friends, and they, so it got into some serious topics, but but it's still like really a page turner, like that's how I describe it. So anyway.
Well, thank you.
I wanted to hear like how you thought of that concept, of these boys and growing up and like that.
Well, the idea actually came to me. I was chatting with an old high school friend on Facebook, and they said how many, we always, because we grew up on Lizardville Road. Mm-hmm. So that's where the name came from. But we always kind of, as a nickname, we just called it Lizardville. and they had mentioned how many people can say they grew up in Lizardville. Well, and it's just like a light bulb went off. And it's like, okay, I've got to do this story. But there are some things that were true. When we were kids, I did live in the old dam keeper's house. And there was an old broken down dam, and there was remnants of an old axe factory. So the picture on the cover is actually from 1904, and that is the actual axe factory in 1904 in Mill Hall, Pennsylvania.
I can see it. I was thinking this might be a real picture. When I saw it, I was thinking that.
Got that from the Pennsylvania Historical Society.
Oh, nice.
So, and but there's a lot of things in there that were true. And originally, I started the story out just as an adventure story about myself growing up, but that was kind of boring because not everybody has an exciting childhood. So I added that paranormal element to give it something that it was lacking. And but like when we were kids, we really did go to a motorcycle shop and take the old crates that were the big styrofoam crates where the motorcycles were packed in, and we would go out on the creek. It was Big Fishing Creek at the time, and we would actually spend some time in the summer there floating and things like that. Now the dam was not as dangerous as I made it appear in the book, but there's a lot of things, it's fiction, so there's a lot of things you have to elaborate on and really stretch the truth on, but. There was some, that part of it was true. The part where we used to stop at the bridges and jump off the bridges and stuff, those parts were true. I had to add a little bit in there for like boys will be boys, and do mean things to each other. But there was just a lot of it came from life experience, growing up in those areas. I loved the mountains. I loved my childhood there. It's just something that, I just was passionate about writing, and I'm working on characters, developing them, exaggerating them to a certain level for the story, and have tried to incorporate several side stories so you know a little bit about the history of each one of the boys and the characters in the story.
And I think that's why I related to it so well, because I'm on the Lehigh River, okay? But there's creeks that branch off that my brother, who's younger than me, him and his friends did hang out. And, actually on the first day of fishing, we head off from school.
Yes.
Because that's just what
everybody was there. Because
everybody was there anyway, So there were some things like growing up in Pennsylvania, like I don't think other people understand. Like that was a big day, Yes. And my brother and his friends would sleep down there. And, so that they could I don't even know. I mean, I have to ask him what kind of tents they pitched or whatever. But, I mean, it was not anything fancy. It wasn't, like basically sleeping bags and, and then how they were getting food. Like, I can so picture them doing that, just like, okay, we're out of food. We got to go get food. And just walking to wherever, and trying to get themselves some food. And, so that's maybe why it related to me so much, because I could totally envision all of it happening. But I loved the ghost story part of it. I love that you introduced that into it, like I said, and this big mystery. And, I think that even though I'm an adult, I have 4 sons, but I really enjoyed it. And I think that for YA, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I could be wrong about this, but YA is really geared towards girls a lot. It's a lot of girl stuff. And so
it really seems to be, yes.
Do you think that too? I mean, like I said, I've homeschooled my 4 sons. I do have 2 daughters, but it seemed like when I was trying to find a book for them to read in that age category, it's a little bit trickier. It's not, for the girls, there's all that romance and high school and middle school, and, but for boys, I mean, Goosebumps, that was huge for my older sons. They were involved in that. Not so much now, but I love that this was like, it's not that it's not for girls, but it's really geared to, oh, good, there's a YA book out there for boys. And if you make it into a series, even more so. I mean, I think that's amazing.
Well, thank you. I read a lot of YA books myself, and every time it's always the girl who's the lead role. She's the heroine of the story, always solves the mysteries. And I wanted to try to do something a little different. I'm not a girl, so it's hard to write about being a female.
Right.
But I just thought it would be a good boy adventures, and it's all set in the 1970s. Right. So I tried to incorporate a little bit of that kind of talk and slang in there.
Yes.
Into the story as well.
Yes. Yeah, it's just amazing. So you did do your other series, Gabby and Maddox. I did not read that, but is that, it seemed to me like that's not YA, right? That's even younger?
No, that was more for 6 to 8 year olds.
Okay.
More for children. My first story was We Can't Move at Christmas. And that kind of came as an idea. My company was moving everything up to Ohio and at the time, and I was going to lose my job. So it was like, do I relocate? What do I do? And it happened to be coming right at Christmas time, and it hit me. It's like, what do you do if you're a child, and your parents have to move at the holidays? How are they going to find you? And I mean, how's Santa going to find you? So I incorporated this, family moving department that Santa has, that these elite group of elves that, decide that would follow children and families moving at that time of the year, so they could keep track of where everybody was. And that was kind of my beginning of my writing career. Something that I've always wanted to do since I was a child. Mm-hmm. And that took off. And I wrote a couple of children's books, which was the Gabby and Maddox Adventures series, which the second one was Adventures in Italy, mm-hmm. which kind of came from when my wife and I were very fortunate to spend 2 weeks in Italy. So I kind of took a lot of notes and wrote a book about that and the children's experience there. They step into the Colosseum, and Maddox goes into a dream that he's a gladiator, or they're out there I can't remember the name of it now, but he gets into the chariot races, and he's racing on a chariot. And a lot of that had to do with, he meets his old bully from school, so he's trying to do anti-bully messages in there. I've incorporated a little bit of that for the younger kids. And then I followed up with a space adventure with blast-offs when the kids come back to Florida to visit their grandparents, and they go on, they join the children's astronaut program, because Grandpa had a little pull with NASA, and he got him in. But it was kind of a wacky space adventure, because I'm a sci-fi guy. I like horror, I like sci-fi, and I always wanted to do a space book. But when I was at a book signing at Barnes & Noble one day, there was a group of boys there, probably 8, 9 years old, that said, "Oh, these books look interesting. However, they're not for me. They're kid books. I'm too old for that." Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay. So they moved on, and I decided, it's time to step up my game, to write a novel, to do something a little more challenging. And I enjoyed it a lot more. I felt I could express myself more with a young adult novel, and I think that's where I'm going to stay at, in the young adult novel area. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was written for 8 to 12-year-old age groups, but so was Harry Potter.
That's exactly right.
And we all know what happened with Harry Potter.
That's exactly right. And it's interesting how when kids say that, because you do find that the YA books, you think they're going to be geared towards like middle school, but really it's the 4th, 5th, maybe 6th graders that are reading it, because it just seems like they're always, just like the older books, especially for girls, like they're reading that in middle school, so it's always like you think you got an age group, but actually it's the younger kids. And that's why I think these books are going to do so well in that 4th and 5th grade boy, age range. I think that, and I mean, haven't you found that out with your fans? Don't you think that that's what it is going on?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I recently had a book signing at Barnes & Noble, a different one here in the local area, and I had a lot of the boys coming up, and they're like, "Oh yeah, this looks pretty cool," and they were picking it up, and like, "Mom, can I buy this? Dad, can I buy this?" And I even had a 7-year-old girl, and she just impressed me. She was like, "Oh, I can read this," and her mom was like, "You're only 7." She was, "I've read bigger books, Mom."
I've read bigger
books. And she's like, "But it's scary." And she was, "I like scary. Can I get it, please?" And my brother Ben would want one too, so they ended up buying 2. And I just like, okay, I think I'm on the right track of where I want to be and what kind of readership I'm looking for.
Right.
So I felt that I made the right decision by changing to going for more of a little bit older readership. And it's also a good story for adults. As you said yourself, you enjoyed it.
I was on the plane to Texas, and I got the Kindle version of it. Finished it. in the plane ride. I mean, that's why I said when I say page turner, I mean it is a page turner, okay? I mean, of course, I can read faster because I'm an adult, but it wasn't like I wanted to quit. I was like, okay, how much longer do I have on this trip? Okay, I gotta quit. I gotta keep reading it. I don't want to interrupt my reading of it. So I wanted to see how it ended. So if I'm wanting to see how it ended, I can only imagine how kids will be, wanting to see how it ends. But okay, so hearing that you're at Barnes & Noble, and I saw some pictures of you there, I was so excited because I wanted to find out, like, how did you get this published and then get it into, because a lot of authors are having a hard time nowadays getting into Barnes & Noble as, beginning authors and people who don't have, 10 books under them. So I wanted to hear about how you managed to do that.
Well, I'm very fortunate. I'm an indie author, like many authors out there today. But they have a lot of the local Barnes & Noble here in the Tampa Bay area have a program where they have dollars that they work with. They have a spending account that they work with charities, like Friends of the Libraries or things like that, other youth charities. So they'll bring in local authors to help promote us. As well, and a lot of the proceeds from the sales go to the organizations that we're working with. Wow. So there's kind of a write-off for Barnes & Noble. It's good community stuff, and they've decided to steer away from bigger authors and go with local authors. So I've been fortunate in that respect that I've made a few contacts and have been in several stores in the Tampa area.
That's amazing. I'm really happy that they're doing that because that's the first I've heard of it. And I'm really happy that Barnes & Noble is understanding that there are indie authors, that there are so many indie authors out there, so many people who are going to self-publishing, that it's in their best interest to pay attention to that. So I really hope that all the Barnes & Nobles start doing that for specific areas,
Oh, I agree. I think it's a great avenue for us. I think it benefits them. I mean, I sold a ton of copies that morning, and at my last signing, and that was my best ever that we've done at a book signing for a Barnes & Noble. So I know they benefited from it. The organization, we were there for the youth. It was for adoption agencies for helping kids get adopted, because it's more of a teen adoption thing, because once they get past a certain age, nobody wants to adopt a child. But we were there trying to work that for them, and we raised a lot of money for them. It was myself and some other authors, and we had a great time. And thanks Barnes & Noble for stepping up and recognizing the indie authors, because it is a changing market. And if you don't get on the boat, you kind of get left behind.
Yeah, and I really, I've talked to a lot of book publishers who have said that if Barnes & Noble can't keep up with that, it's only their own demise that's going to happen, because book publishers are even understanding that they need to go look for you guys instead of the other way around. That is even changing.
Oh, absolutely. And, I've tried traditional publishing, and it's not that I want that eventually, but I have more control doing this myself.
Yes.
And I like that feeling, not where someone's dictating what I'm going to do, when I'm going to do it, or how I'm going to write my story. So I like that angle. I do put a lot into the books. I use several editors, because I do want to put a quality product. I mean, that's one of the things that has hurt indie authors, is I think that so many people rush to publish the book. I know I did that on my first book, and I ended up having to redo the whole book, because the first one, it wasn't done very, very well, and we rewrote the whole story and re-released it probably 8 months after it was originally published.
Wow.
So it's just a matter of trial and error and learning. I want to put a quality product out there for the readers. I don't want to put something out there where you're going to read through it and find 100 errors. Right. I mean, I still read books today from traditional publishing where I find errors.
Yes, I was going to say that, absolutely. But I have to tell you that I don't look. I mean, the fact is that I found your book. Okay, so that means I found you on Amazon and or Goodreads. I go to both of those, and I was able to find you as a self-published author. Okay, and I don't look to see that you're self-published. I read the book. I don't even look, and I actually had to look, and I was like, I'm not even sure if he is. I didn't see. That's what's the quality of indie authors is going up, because they are paying attention to that. If I can't tell that is a good thing. You know, it's not like I'm reading this saying, oh, this guy self-published it and he just put it out there very quickly. And because I couldn't tell. Until I looked, I couldn't tell. And that's what's amazing, you know, about what is available now in hiring editors, getting a great cover like this. I mean, that helps too, is that you're able to get, and you get to decide. Do you know how many authors I interview that can't decide their covers? That's not part of their process? I'm not even kidding. You're like, you wrote the book and you can't pick the cover? They just send them and they're like, this is the new cover. And then they change it too. You know, after a year, they'll be like, oh, that's not working. We're going to another cover, you know? But you were actually the one who got to decide and that this is what you wanted on there. And
yeah, I actually designed that myself.
Right. So that's awesome. So go ahead.
And on some of the children's books, I've actually hired illustrators because I do want a quality cover.
Right.
I don't feel like doing, you know, I don't want to put out something that doesn't look good to the reader. I want something appealing, and that's why I hired professionals, because I can draw, but it's only stick figures.
Me too. Yeah, and as the reader, like I want to see a good cover. That's why I buy the book, or else I just get the Kindle. But I'm a book buyer. I get the Kindle and the book.
Well,
I do both. No matter what, if I get a Kindle, and I always end up buying the book just because I love books. But that's just me. So
yeah, I have a hard time getting rid of books that I've collected.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, I have a very hard time with that. Even though I've got stacks everywhere, but it's still difficult. So, when did you decide to start writing? I mean, when did you decide that was going to be the thing that you were going to do?
When I was a kid, I always wanted to write. I even took some journalism classes. I always wanted to be that investigative reporter. And then after high school, things kind of changed for me. I joined the military, and you know, life kind of happens sometimes.
Oh, that's right.
You
were in the Air Force, correct?
Yes, I was in the Air Force. I served 4 years.
Awesome.
I spent 3 years overseas in the Philippines.
Mm-hmm.
I got married and had a family, and life just kind of happens. I ended up putting what I wanted to do on hold, like so many people do.
Right.
And then after all these years, the kids have grown up and moved out and pursuing their own life and their own career. Because I have 3 daughters. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's just my wife and I now, and I just started writing again. And I came up, you know, like I said, the idea for We Can't Move at Christmas came to me when I was going through a lot of turmoil with my company. And fortunately, they ended up being bought out, and I'm still with them.
Oh,
so,
awesome.
Yeah, I mean, 7 years later, I'm still with the same company. It was just a different name now. Mm-hmm. So I've been very fortunate to keep my job, and I didn't have to move. So I'm still in Florida.
Right.
Because I love the warm weather. And nothing against Pennsylvania. Trust me, I did not like winter.
Trust me, that's my second, I love Florida. I love Florida so much. It's the answer to Pennsylvania, Florida.
Yes. I mean, you know, growing up as a kid, like I said, I love the water. We love to go fishing. We love to spend time on the water as kids, and I still love the water and the beach here. So,
that's
and the
right.
warm weather just is a blessing. So
that's right.
You know, I just after that, you know, once the kids graduated and moved on to their own lives, I just decided to pursue my own career again, and I didn't think that. You know, I tried to get traditionally published, and the next thing I know, someone was saying you should go with self-publishing, and I started looking into it, and here I am, you know, 4 books later, and I've been enjoying myself at it, and it's a hobby, but maybe one day it'll be more.
Right.
You know, it's something that I can do, and it's not tedious outside work, you know, that's going to kill me. So it's something I can do for the next 10 or 15 years, I hope.
That's awesome. I think you're an amazing writer. I loved it.
Well, thank you.
I really did. I mean, like I said, you kept me with it. I enjoyed every minute of it, every page. It was an amazing story. I love the whole concept. And when I got to the last page and I was like, and you kind of set it up for the next book, and I was like, yes, he's going to write another book. So, like, I you know, because that's always one of my questions, but you set it up so nicely that I was like, well, he could end it, but I really don't think he's going to end it. I really think this is going to be a great series.
Well, originally it was going to be a 1 book.
Okay.
But I've had a lot of people, when's the next one coming out? I need to know how this finished. You had too many unanswered questions.
Yes.
And I was like, okay. So I was working on something else, which I've kind of put on the back burner to go back to this one and write another book, because I do have a lot of things I didn't answer, and people were wondering about, what happened to Old Man Smithers? Why didn't he play more of a role in this? So I was going to incorporate him. What happened to the original factory owner that,
Right.
was involved in the legends, and why didn't we ever hear any more about him? So all of that's going to play back into the second book, and I hope to answer all the questions that people were asking me. Why haven't I answered those? And I do know, like, for those that haven't read the story, I don't want to spoiler alert. So stop if you pause this, jump forward a minute. But I don't know if they realized it, but in chapter 13, Unlucky 13, was when Jimmy met his demise.
Yeah.
So that was something that kind of just happened to work out that way, but it was something I did want to put in there that, it did happen in chapter 13. But I did bring him back, and that was kind of a neat way. It caught a lot of people off guard. Even my daughter said it caught me off guard. I did not know that's what you were going to do with him.
Yeah, me neither.
And he plays a big role in the second book.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Because I felt the same way. You caught me very off guard with it. But that's a good thing. You should always keep us off guard,
Absolutely.
And I'm sure it's awesome, as this being like, you thought it was going to be a sole book, for people to come to you and say, I want another one. Like, that must have made you feel so good, that, like, of course it's like, oh my gosh, because I'm telling you, I interviewed this one woman, an author from Canada. I interviewed her a couple months ago, but she said the best advice anybody ever gave her was write series books. And, that's all she's ever written. And she's got a fan base like you wouldn't believe. So it's like, fans love series. They get attached to characters and they want to see them. They don't want to just read a book and then be like, all right, well, next book, because now it's like, we know these kids, we know them, and you can do so much with each one of their stories, let alone, the adults,
Well, and sometimes, I read a lot of young adult, and everyone's going through these trilogies. I like them. I just find sometimes some of them can be a little dull in book two.
Right.
And it's been like, it's just like filler pages to me.
Yes.
And so I've decided it's probably only going to be a 2-book series, but I'm not going to roll out a 3rd book either. Right. So.
Well, I just think you have enough, they always say you should stick to a couple of main characters, but I thought these were, each character in itself, like I said, has its own, can go into a background or or something else. But, I thought you set it up really well to be able to go into, who knows, and you just have to play it out and see. So I'm really excited for you. And I love finding authors like you. You have no idea how happy it makes me, not that I, of course, published authors, but when I find a self-published that is amazing, it makes me so happy. So.
Thank you, Michelle. It's great to hear that. I've heard a few people tell me that the first 20, 30 pages was a little slow for them, but then they said after that the book got really good and they couldn't put it down. So, I was trying to set up more of the scenery and the background and some of that, which I think maybe I may have went a little overboard with that, but, live and learn.
But as an adult, maybe for kids that's true, but I like the beginning. I like the setup of the dad being and then I love that it goes back. You know what it kind of reminds me of, in a weird way, just because. But do you ever see that show, How I Met Your Mother?
Oh, yes, I have.
And you know how the kids are like, oh, what comes next, Dad? What comes next, Dad? And I love how after every couple of chapters, you go back to the kids and the dad.
Yes.
To remind us that this is a story that you're telling the kids, And
yes.
that's a very, that concept you don't read. So I was like, oh, that's brilliant. I love that. I love that idea. It's different and it's brilliant. So I like it.
Thank you.
Yes. So anyway, let us know your next, when that comes out. I will be watching where I can, but you can always come back on here and we can talk about that because I would love that.
I would love that too. Thank you.
Yes. So keep us in touch, and I'll have all your links on the bottom so people can find you. And because you have a website, and I think are you on Facebook? I think I found you on Facebook too.
Yes, I'm on Facebook. Yes. I'm all the social media sites.
All the social, yeah. I mean, we all try to keep up with that. Somehow kids have a better way of keeping up with that than I do. So I
feel your pain there. Me too.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, so we can put everything there for you, and you just keep us in touch and let us know when the next one's coming out, and we'll chat again.
All right, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for your time. We'll have a great day.
You too, Michelle.
All right,
thank you.
Bye-bye.